Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Ayanda Mbata and I'm the Relationship Manager at Turn Left Media. As many of you know, Turn Left Media is the exclusive media partner for LinkedIn in Sub-Saharan Africa. This has been the year of the virtual event. They haven't just stepped into the breach as a substitute when in-person events became impossible, but rather they've redefined what an event is, what its role in marketing strategy should be, and what skills are involved in putting one on. They've done all of this at a remarkable speed. So much so that it's now impossible to ask questions about the future of digital marketing without also asking questions about the future of virtual events. In LinkedIn's newly released State of Virtual Events report, 75% of event marketers worldwide say they plan to continue running virtual events over the long term. And a typical event marketer plans to run more virtual events by 40% more than in-person ones. The future involves both of these formats. So how should we think about their different roles? Virtual events have been one of the biggest success stories for event organizers in EMEA. 69% of marketers agree that virtual events have provided a greater ROI than running physical events, and 81% actually also agree that virtual events have provided opportunities that we would not have had beforehand. Today, we're joined by experts from Turn Left Media, APSA, Standard Bank, and the University of Pretoria, as we delve into events and virtual eventing and provide you with the blueprints to set up your business for success. Now, just for a little bit of some housekeeping rules before we get started, if you have any questions during this conversation, please type them into the chat box and we'll be sure to respond as we go. Now, without further ado, we'll turn to Marius Greef. He's our founder and director at Turn Left Media. Marius has been working with LinkedIn for the last 11 years and has helped brands across Africa launch virtual event experiences for more than 3 years now. Marius, thank you for the time today, and over to you.
Good morning, Ayanda, and thank you so much for the incredible opportunity this morning. It is fantastic to be here and talk about something that we are incredibly passionate about at Turn Left Media. We've been incredibly fortunate to have run several virtual events with some of our key partners since the start of the pandemic and since the release of LinkedIn Live. And hopefully this morning we can share a few hints and tips that will help all businesses and individuals become more successful, both on a virtual event side as well as on LinkedIn Live. Right now, the thing is, why do we even care, right? So we've seen that there's been a massive increase in the engagement in video in general. So people are 5 times more likely to start a conversation when you use video. We see this in paid advertising and in live events. It generates significantly more comments and engagement, and people prefer live video rather than social posts. And as a marketer myself, I can guarantee you this surge in coordinating events in a virtual format has become more and more important for us over the last 2 years, as it's won over marketers and it's given us a way to continue to engage on a personalized level with the people that matter to us most, right? And there's 3 fundamental principles that I think that are incredibly important in why marketers have continued to reach out to virtual events as a solution for some of the challenges we face, but more importantly, why virtual events are here to stay. If you think that the way that the world's going to change once this vaccination has started rolling out before, virtual events, I think, are going to be part of people's repertoires in the future. Because it's pandemic proof, right? So we don't know what the future holds. We don't know how the world is going to shift, right? And this gives us a way to continue to engage and stay in touch with the people that matter to us, irrespective of whatever happens. It's also incredibly cost effective. I'm able to reach people in Nigeria and Kenya and all across the world through this webinar this morning. And we're seeing this more and more abound. So gone are the days where you have to worry about the costs of hiring a venue, of hiring speakers, of flying and traveling to those locations. It's certainly going to become a reality again over the next couple of months for in-person events. But this gives us a scalable alternative that will cement virtual events for the future. And even given the state of events, if we just look at what people are telling us about live events and about virtual events at the moment, we know that events remain for marketers one of the biggest arrows in our quiver, right? So most marketing decision makers use events as part of the strategy, and they think that it's critical to their success. And the data backs this out, right? So it's considered to be one of the most effective ways of targeting and reaching audiences, much bigger than direct marketing or SEO, because generally there's a massive value exchange that happens over the course of an event. And it gives people the opportunity to not only showcase their thought leadership, but showcase the individuals within the brands as well. And I'm really excited to listen into the panel in a few minutes with some amazing people we've worked with, and just hear the way that they've also approached events to reach specific audiences, right? But the three general challenges that we see when it comes to hosting events is, firstly, creating a really good experience, right? So 70% of users become regular customers after a great experiential event. And so it generally means the stakes are higher for marketers, and they want to ensure that they have the best experience possible. And then we want to make sure that we drive the right awareness to the right people, and that we measure our event effectiveness and ROI. So one of the interesting things after we work with clients and we get them on board for LinkedIn Live and we start running events is generally this conversation about baseline reporting or benchmarking, because people are really concerned about the effectiveness and the time and energy that go into events. And virtual events give people a scale and an opportunity that they might not have had before, right? But the incredible thing is that virtual events were really triumphant in 2020, and people have leaned incredibly heavily on events for the future as a measure of success, right? So 7 in 10 event organizers have agreed that running virtual events have provided them with much higher ROI than running physical events. And so if I can look to the future as the vaccination programs start rolling out, as we become more accessible to the world again, I think we're going to see a really unique hybrid of virtual and physical events. And virtual events will, in some cases, amplify physical events. It gives us the ability to open up our events beyond just the 100 seats or the 200 seats that we have at these particular venues. But it also gives us the ability to amplify what we're doing to audiences and people beyond just the ones we know about. But how do I get started on LinkedIn Live, right? So LinkedIn's actually rolled out a whole bunch of new features to consolidate what it's been doing in the past, right? So it's this ability to get the best features of a scheduled live event and a LinkedIn event together in one super converged product to really maximize reach and engagement. So now you can schedule a virtual event very far in advance, as far as you want to. You can use event ads to promote your upcoming live event and to secure registrations. What's really cool for me, one of the biggest things that they've changed now is the moment you go live, not only will LinkedIn notify your event registrants, it will also go and send a notification to a section of your page followers as well. So that's really cool for bigger corporations, right? So you want to have the ability to create an event and create a community on LinkedIn around your event, right? So you want to facilitate that social interaction and social conversation. But now you can actually reach those large follower populations that you've worked so hard to build up as well. Anybody can join at any time. So if you are online at the moment, you can go to the Turn Left Media page, and you'll see at the top of our page, the header for the actual page changes to showcase your LinkedIn Live. And the great thing is it actually now gets distributed into the news feed of people that are engaging in the type of topics that we're talking about as well. Now, unfortunately, you actually still have to apply for LinkedIn Live. And I know it's been one of the biggest bugbears for people because the criteria has been a little bit ubiquitous and the registration process has been very difficult. LinkedIn's making it super easy now. So they've dropped the requirements to 150 followers or 150 connections. And once you get approved, all of the admins on the page gets access. And the question is, why has LinkedIn updated this event, updated LinkedIn events, right? There are two reasons primarily. The first one is they want to have a better scaled experience. So they want to be able to give people a better way of reaching all of the individuals and easing access, and then also making it easier for people to invest in native streaming. So there are two ways. Once you've applied and you've been approved for a LinkedIn event, you can choose to connect in either one of two ways. So you can either use a tool like Restream or StreamYard or any of the ones that we have on screen here. And there is a bigger list of brands that LinkedIn work with as third-party broadcasters, or you can choose to use LinkedIn's custom RTMP stream to connect directly to the platform. And one of the tips I want to share, and this is really important, is sit down with your technical team, whether it is just yourself, right? If you're doing it as a one-man show, whether it is your marketing person, if you're doing it in smaller business, or whether it's your marketing team and your audio-visual company or your audio-visual team, sit down beforehand and plan out how you're going to build and scope out your event, right? The one we're doing today is relatively simple. So we use a platform called StreamYard. We can get people to dial in via their laptops from wherever they are. We can do pre-recorded sessions if we want to. And it's relatively easy for a smaller team to coordinate and manage and engage on that. And then you've got big businesses, you've got audio-visual departments, audio-visual teams, and you can do much more immersive and interactive sessions. And you've got the opportunity to manage this. The last thing you also want to just think about when you create your LinkedIn event and before you go live is to decide whether you're going to be streaming directly to your page, to all of your page followers, or if you're actually going to create an event. If you stream to all of your page followers, then the moment you go live, all of the individuals that are connected to your page will either receive a notification in their feed or they'll receive a push notification. Whereas if you choose to create an event, you have this ability to create a closed ecosystem where you can have conversations with people, you can build up questions, you can build up engagement, and then when you go live, it'll go live to your event registrants as well as a subsection of your page followers. So slightly different nuances that you can go to and look at which one works for you. Now, there's a couple of steps that we can do before, during, and after our event to set ourselves up for success. And if we just think about those steps, right, we want to make sure that we schedule the event as marketers as far in advance as possible, right? Don't leave it to the last second. Don't give yourself a week to try and get people to engage, especially if you're not creating an event, right? So if you're just going live on your page, you want to build awareness and you want to build mental availability to the people that you're targeting in advance so that they know they're going to have to go to your page or at a specific time or be online at a specific time to actually engage. Remember to edit and add a registration form to your event so you can collect people's information and you can tell them about future events, or you can send them details around your the existing event, your slides, your recordings. And then remember to promote the event as well, right? So you can use it on LinkedIn, you can promote it through an event ad, or you can do it off platform through all of your other communication tools, right? During the event as the event goes live, all of your registrations, as well as some of your page followers, will receive a notification. And then remember, the event is 100% public. So we generally see a lot of engagement happening for an event after the event has actually happened. So not during the event, right? It's not a traditional event anymore where the event has happened, it's closed off, and that's all she wrote. A lot of interaction, a lot of additional views, a lot of comments will only happen after the event. So make sure that you check back in. Make sure that you, if you're measuring this, make sure that you measure it a week or 2 weeks after the event to see how it's grown. And then after the event, you've got all this incredible content. You've got recordings, you can get quotes, you can develop takeouts from the actual event. Use all of those particular elements. But how does an event look like for an event attendee? So I go to Flexus, I see they've got an amazing event scheduled. The artwork is great, it's a topic that I'm interested in. So I go to the event page and I click attend. Now, the person is immediately opted in and they'll receive a notification inside their primary email inbox that gives them the ability to add it to their calendar. And what's really nice is the system will also then send you frequent reminders about the event. So 7 days before the event starts, 3 days before, 15 minutes before, and then on the point of going live, the individuals will receive a notification in their inbox. You can also choose to take a little bit of the guesswork outside of your event registrations. You know, if it's important, if you want to drive a specific audience to your particular event, then you can use event ads to place the opportunity inside the feed of the people that matter to you. And once they click attend event, they'll go to the events page. They can see all of the information and they can either choose to register or to attend the event. Now, I will hope LinkedIn will develop a new functionality for this tool pretty soon where it's a one-click registration. So you see the event, you just click attend and it automatically adds you in. But for the moment, you still have to go through to the actual event to use it. Then during the event, for those people who haven't clicked attend, the event will appear inside the newsfeed of our followers. It's going to appear on our company page. So the header image of your company page is going to be replaced. And people within the actual event itself will get a notification to say that the event has gone live. And then after the event, everybody can go and access your recording again. So they'll be able to see the comments in real time as it happened. They'll be able to post additional comments. And as I said, the good thing is like this content lives on. So LinkedIn's got some basic functionality for editing built into the app. So if you want to cut out a few seconds before the event starts, you can do that. If you want to trim it at the end, you can do that. Like very easy functionality. But if you want to go and edit it, you can go and download the content afterwards. You can save it. You can repost it onto your website or onto other platforms and host it there for future use. So it's a really good opportunity to drive further engagement for your content. And the amazing thing is, as an event organizer, you've got tons of information at your fingertips on how people are engaging in the event. You can see how they've registered, how many people have viewed your event, where they've come from, their job titles, their seniorities. You can use all of that to build informed decisions on your future events. And lastly, as many people look at your event and look at the opportunities around your event after it's happened than during the event. So don't miss out on that conversation. So I'm going to give you a few best practices, right? Some really good examples of what we've seen from people who've adopted to LinkedIn Live early. The first one is analyze your audience, right? So try and understand the time zones that the majority of your followers on your LinkedIn page, on your personal profile, where they're from. Because you want to make sure that you live stream at a time when it's most convenient for your particular audience, right? So use your follower tab on your page's admin view, and you'll see there's a wealth of information in addition to your target audience's location. You also want to promote your event to generate interest and to maximize viewership. make sure that you use all of the information and all of your speakers to create a stream of content. So when we create events, as we generally start 4 weeks before an event starts, we start promoting the event. The first one is we'll talk about the general event and the theme. Then we'll talk about the keynote speaker. Then we'll talk about our panelists. We'll maybe post about an insight or a research piece or a statistic that drives the user behavior. And then a day before, we'll post a final reminder to help people create a sense of urgency around your particular event. You also want to make sure that you use your hashtags within your stream before and after. So there are people, lots of people, who follow particular hashtags on LinkedIn, and it can range anywhere from a few followers to millions of followers. And you want to make sure that you use hashtags to allow those individuals to discover your stream, right? So think about using 2 to 3 hashtags within your particular post. Try and keep 2 as generic as possible, right? So if you're a financial institution, you might want to use the hashtag banking or hashtag finance, because it is a very broad term and you'll reach a lot of people. And then use 1 or 2 hashtags that are unique to your particular brand. Maybe you have a catchphrase, maybe you have a saying. Use that hashtag to drive the awareness. Then before the stream as well, make sure that you plan on the execution. I have seen many virtual events fall over because people haven't done the technical work. Make sure that you test your internet connection. Make sure, depending on the scale of your event, that you have the right people in the room. You don't want to be running an event on your own and speaking and coordinating. It gets very messy very quickly. So try and ask a friend or a colleague to help play producer for you. Get your marketing team involved. Get your social media team or your social media department to help you moderate and engage on comments and questions during the event, and to operate the production side. And then look at the length of your engagement. Look at the length of your stream and try and determine what works really well. So one of our clients the other day ran a stream that was only 25 to 30 minutes long. It was one of the shortest streams I've ever seen, but the engagement was phenomenal because they got in, they delivered incredible content in a really short space of time. People weren't overwhelmed, and the moment it was done, right? So think about the ways that you use the content. Think about your audience and what makes sense. Then during the event, be prepared. Have a good grasp of the topic and your run of show. Make sure that you're authentic. So there's this big debate about whether people need to do live events or whether you can pre-record conversations, right? If you pre-record it, just bear in mind that there might be a slightly authentic thing. Like make sure the people who are actually in your video, in your panel, they're not commenting on other things as it's happening. And as people are posting questions, right, you want to have your moderator potentially react or engage with the comments and questions that are actually being asked. And then if something goes wrong, have a backup plan. I have seen several instances where something's happened at the last moment, technical error, something's broken down, and you want to make sure that you've planned for this. Ask your employees, your colleagues to reshare your content. Make sure that you mention the people that are going to be your guests. And then lastly, make sure that you moderate. And after the stream, repurpose. Right? You've got this amazing content. You've got brilliant speakers. You've got quotes. Make sure that you use this content. Now that you've applied, you've done some great content, you want to make sure that you measure correctly, right? And this is a big thing. Everybody asks us for benchmarks, but the content and this field is still so new and it's so incredibly varied. It's very difficult to give people benchmarks. So think about why you're doing the stream. Think about what your purpose is, and then look at the metrics that you do have available and try and align to that and decide what is good for you. For one brand, it might be having 50 people on. For some people, it might be having 200 or 100 on, right? Determine what's relevant for you. if you do brand awareness, you might think about peak concurrent live viewers or how many total viewers have seen it. If it's engagement, look at your likes and your comments and your shares, right? If you test and optimize before, during, and after the event, you're going to see the most success. And think about the things that are really valuable to you. Like, when did people drop off? How quickly did they drop off? What was my total viewers, right? And for each one, think about how you can change it up. So if you look at your views afterwards and you see at a certain point in time, so at the 20-minute mark or the 30-minute mark, there was a massive drop off, right? Look at your content and see, did you switch to another author? Was the questioning point, what happened that caused that drop off, right? Because all of these things are an opportunity for people to understand and to engage with your content and for you to make it more valuable for other people. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity. It was great. And I really look forward to our amazing panel now.
Marius, that was really great. Thank you so much for all of those insights. I love the new updates to the platform, and I can't wait to see what brands and people are going to be using LinkedIn events and LinkedIn Live for on the platform. Viewers, next up, I'd like to introduce Nelly Ndonye. So Nelly is our country manager in East Africa at our East Africa branch at Turn Left Media, and she'll be hosting our panel discussion. So Nelly, hello, first of all, and I'd love for you to please introduce our wonderful panelists to us today.
Thank you, Ayanda, and thank you all for joining us today. I will start with Joe Blake, the Group Talent Acquisition Lead at Absa Group Limited. Joe has close to 2 decades in the talent acquisition arena and has continuously pushed herself to not only do more, but continue to learn more. She earned an honors degree in psychology from Stellenbosch University, and in between pushing herself, maintained a successful modeling career as well as a master's degree in psychology from UKZN, which held the key to what was to come. Thank you for joining us, Joe. Then we have
Thank
Laura.
you so much. Thank you.
Then we have Laura. Laura is a senior marketing manager at Standard Bank Group. Laura originally started her professional journey at Top Billing as a production assistant in 2000. She moved on to video editor and event director roles at Homage from 2001 to 2006. She knew early that she wanted to work in a creative environment with a focus on communication. Laura's early experience as a video editor helped her to expand on her storytelling skills. In 2009, she took on the position of internal communications manager and head of the video unit. Now, as Standard Bank's senior marketing manager, she oversees brand, economic research, and digital within her marketing portfolio for the wholesale clients division. Laura has a deep appreciation for the passion and effort required to positively impact business culture and advance brands. Thank you for joining us, Laura.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Then we have Samantha Castle. Samantha is the senior manager, alumni relations, University of Pretoria. Samantha is a researcher and a published writer. She passed her master's degree in development practice cum laude and was awarded the Research Excellence Award for her research on SDGs and partnerships. Samantha is currently completing her PhD in business management. She holds a BA honors from the University of Western Cape and a master's in development practice from the University of Pretoria. Samantha is an advocate for social justice, in particular, women's rights, gender equality, and youth development. She has served on nonprofit boards and is currently an ambassador for Lesedi Labatu, a nonprofit organization that seeks to inspire and empower youth and women in the Mapombane township of Pretoria. She also mentors young people and serves as a business advisor to a successful small business in Cape Town. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me.
And then we have Zubeda from Standard Bank. Zubeda has been at Standard Bank for 8 years as head of wholesale client events, the focus of which is to drive the overall event strategy in line with the wholesale client's business strategy. She entered the field of events in 2007 as a conference producer for business-to-business conferences, then followed her passion to event production into the media industry. Beyond her passion for the event industry, Zubeda is passionate about enabling people to grow within her personal and work lives. Within her role at Standard Bank, Zubeda has found the balance between exceptional experiences, which strengthen the brand, and the ability to work and lead people to reach their potential in the field of eventing. Thank you for joining us, Zubeda.
Thank you, Nelly.
All right, so we'll jump right in, and I would like to start with you, Samantha. You started out virtual events at the start of the pandemic. What was the biggest organizational shift that you had to overcome to begin the process? And what was the initial reaction internally and externally to these events?
Well, thanks so much for that question. Yeah, I think we were one of the few or the first institution on the continent, in actual fact, that had started live webinars events on LinkedIn Live. And so to a large degree, we were kind of the guinea pigs in a lot of ways, doing the testing as we started out with it. But lots of learnings during that process. And I think for us, the biggest kind of organizational, well, before I get to the organizational shift, there was some personal shifts because as a team leader, I was home for the first week after the pandemic, and then kind of battled and grappled with the fact that, are we going to become irrelevant during this time? Because what are we going to be doing in terms of shifting from what we traditionally do, which is a lot of physical events, meetings, engagement, to what's left to do right now? And we immediately had to, well, I had to go and look at how do we pivot? How do we adapt? And that's language which we now often hear that is very common in the pandemic era, and the organizational shifts which ended up being was making sure that we kind of persuade internal stakeholders that there's going to be a new way of doing business, and that new way of doing business was going to take our presence online, and externally the feedback that we received was welcoming. It was warm. It was people wanted to engage with the university. We were so successful, I think, in the first few episodes of our webinars that we reached over like 350,000 people, which we never could have been able to do if we stick to the traditional way of doing things. So yeah, I think big organizational shifts in terms of just personally how we actually adapt, but then in terms of how we do business was the most important thing.
All right, thank you. I would like to invite Joe maybe to add on, because Joe, you've also held events during the pandemic. How was that different for your business compared to the events you held pre-pandemic?
For sure. Thank you so much for the question, Nelly. I think it's very similar to Sam. At the end of the day, I'm working within the realm and context of the human capital for ABSA Group. And for us, it was about going out there and telling the ABSA story. And if I look at the reach and the engagement and just the impact that we've had in being able to feature ABSA colleagues, feature what is happening inside of the ABSA context. I think at the end of the day, that any organization is only as good as its people. And for us, it was about telling our people story. And obviously the result is positioning our brand in the market. But where you're sitting in, traditionally where you'd invite people to a talent networking event, for example, LinkedIn Live gave us that opportunity to reach a passive market. I'm sure you're always looking at critical skills and how do we bring those into, different organizations? How do we access them? And I think the platform in itself, outside of just connecting with the humans element in that we're engaging with people that we probably would never be able to engage with, that kind of allowed us access to their world. But at the same time, they were then able to have a window into what's happening inside ABSA as an organization. What is the culture like? What are the stories that exist within ABSA? And of course, what are the people like within the organization? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Sam. Zubeda, I'd like to move to you. You've been running events for a while. And, when we think about events, there are all these activities that happen in the background pre, during, and post-event. How has virtual events shifted the way you prepare and engage on live events versus the traditional in-person events?
Thank you, Nelly, and thanks to Samantha for covering a lot of that in terms of those two aspects, the organizational piece and also us as individuals within this eventing industry. And just to touch on that is that the one part of preparing was really our preparation mentally and emotionally of the control, the face-to-face interaction, and that knowing we are fully controlling every aspect of it was essentially gone. And we had to put ourselves as event people to say, half of what we're going to do now as an event is now moving over to the technical side. And how do we gauge our control aspects? So I'm sure you know all event people are very controlling in their personal and professional lives. And so that was one really big shift. The other part in terms of individuals and event managers was really us understanding that now our technical skills of these streaming platforms, these ability of how do we bring people in and not lose that human interaction and not be also a one-way kind of medium, we had to increase that. And we had to start really getting involved in terms of how does it work? What are the things available to us? How do we make it as real as possible? So there was a lot of, I almost want to say emotive and mental dynamics that we had to go through in order to come to that place. And there was such little time because you had to move from this pandemic and deal with the personal stuff of all of what that means for you as individuals. And then in your professional life, what does that mean? How do we get to market and not lose our presence? So that was one. From an organizational side, and I'm sure Joe, with absolutely you as well, will feel this, events, whether it's big or small, is an event. And the processes you're going to go through is the same. And so we have a philosophy, every event is a big event. You have to do the same work. So how we prepare is pretty much the same, but now we have a lot more anxiety because we have to rely on our technical team a little bit more. There's a lot of things out of our control, bandwidth, etc. But the process, and like Mario said, lead times is so key. Having the right speakers and the right people attend is also so key. Just because you can reach 1 million people, are those 1 million people relevant for your content? And then the other side of it is really insight. And that's always been key, knowing our clients, knowing what their interests are, knowing what they need to know ahead of what they need to know. But it was even more so now. We had to almost preempt what was coming and really stay close in our industry in terms of what are the things that's going to impact our various sectors of clients that we service, and how do we provide them with the knowledge and information to gear them up to prepare for that. So it was really a lot more hand in hand with our business side, our research side that Laura works a lot with, and making sure that we're relevant. You don't have to have an event because you can have an event. So those were really key pieces. And I have to say, a lot of management as well with our business side, they see virtual and they see zero, meaning no cost. It actually can cost the same, if not more, to do things virtual, depending on the experience you want to have. And that was one thing from Standard Bank side. We did not want to drop the level of experience we provided in a face-to-face environment on a virtual side as well. That was very, very key for us. So you can see a lot of balls were in the air in terms of how do we maintain our brand, but also think about the client at the center of everything. So apologies for the helicopter. And that's really how we as the event team prepare.
All right, that sounds very interesting. I really liked your point about insights, and I feel like virtual events create an opportunity for you to get feedback and insights immediately during and immediately post the events. And even in some cases, with a ready audience, you will get some contribution on how to prepare in terms of what people's expectations are. So exactly. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
All right. Laura, I'd like to jump to you, mostly because you also come from a technical background, but let's see, you've been privy to some of the inside workings of the event preparation process. And it's quite impressive, to say the least, when you look at all the technology that comes into play, all the people that have to contribute to making an event live. How do you approach the structure, the organizational elements, and the execution of events?
Thanks very much. I think let me share my experience of working on our first LinkedIn Live event, which we did a couple of months ago. And perhaps as an overarching learning is that I realized that, and I think this has come through in some of the conversations, is that the experience that we have in our event space, the experience that we have in content creation, and the growing experience that's coming through in the social and the digital media space all kind of come together in this space. And I think I want to raise that specifically to make the point that I think that as one looks at some of these new channels, they can feel quite daunting. They can feel like, I'm not sure if I actually want to step in there. But I think that you have to trust that the experience that you've had to date is going to serve you well. It's going to enable you to navigate this new platform as you need to. Having said that, and I think a lot of people have touched on this already in the conversation, I think that one cannot think that because these live environments are perhaps shorter form content, or I suppose just the nature of it feeling live, that you might think, well, I'll just wing it. I think that there really isn't room for that in this world where we are of business and academic communication. I think that we owe it to our audience to really give that due preparation. So let me give a little bit more color to it. The event that we ran was centered around a thought leadership paper that had been authored by John Lamb and Kent Marais from our digital team, along with an external global expert, Sangeet Chowdhury. And the paper was looking at how financial services are evolving, the services and the offerings that they can take to their clients as a result of the opportunities that platforms are opening up. And so we knew we had a great piece of content, and we had to think about how best to package this experience. I think Marius did a really excellent job up front talking through all those considerations that one needs to go through in terms of how does one identify the audience that one wants to reach, and then how does one very systematically go about thinking about how you're going to engage with them. So I think I won't dwell on that much further. We did choose to do this as a pre-recorded event, and I think that there are pros and cons to both routes. And I fully agree with the point that Marius made around if you are going to pre-record. I mean, I think you need to be mindful of things like you shouldn't have then the speakers responding to questions that come through at the time. So I think that as I say, there are pros and cons to both routes. The reason we chose to go with that route is that we wanted to bring quite high production value to the experience. We created a virtual set. We had our interviewer in the set, but all the panelists were being screened in remotely. And we wanted that opportunity to really shape and craft and make sure that the end product was of the standards that we hoped it would be, that it was really conveying, that we were bringing through all the key points that we wanted to in terms of what the content had to offer, but also making sure that it tied in appropriately to our brand narrative and we were using our brand cues and so forth. So that was the route that we chose to go on this particular event. And then I think maybe a further build on what Marius was talking to is that we spent a lot of time ahead of the session thinking through the moderation process. We knew that we couldn't anticipate all the questions that were going to come in, but we just felt that because this was a relatively technical conversation, we felt that it was fair to the moderation team to give them as much preparation as we could. And so the people who had worked on editing the paper worked closely with our moderation team to make sure that we had pre-prepared as many questions as we could, and so that when there were questions that came in that we hadn't anticipated, we sort of were freed up to be able to focus on those quite easily. And perhaps my last point I'd raise in terms of how we thought about approaching this event is we very much saw the LinkedIn Live event as being the anchor of this campaign. But we were very conscious about building it out to be a full campaign. And so in addition to the interview itself, we had a dedicated page on our website where the paper and various other supporting content lived. We backed that up with a digital campaign that drove people to the experience. And we had PR and social media and various channels. So I think that again, I think that these platforms create a fantastic opportunity to catch people in a live environment, really hone in on a particular audience that you want to reach. But I think that one needs to think about what more can you do with the experience. I certainly think that where you've got a great piece of content, you need to. And Morris was again speaking to this, I think, earlier on. You really need to think about how you can take this opportunity and maximize it from all possible angles.
All right, thank you, Laura. I agree with you, especially on the element of utilizing all the assets that you have. So if you have an event, bring in your PR, utilize your other social media channels, definitely part of the planning and execution for a great event. All right, I'd like to move to you, Joe. ABSA was the first to launch LinkedIn Live in Africa for your annual results. And since then,
Yes.
it's taken off in the business and HR has been heavily involved. How is this beneficial to human capital, and how do you approach it differently compared to, a marketing-centered event?
Thank you, Nelly. I think when and I suppose I touched on it a little bit before. I mean, the human capital element is about people, right? And at the center of it all is the heart and soul of the business, is the people. And so, for us, when we approach it and we looked at our LinkedIn Live and the opportunity that the LinkedIn Live platform gave us was about, again, storytelling. And I think we're sitting on the African continent. We are a Pan-African organization. We've got colleagues that sit in Ghana, Kenya, etc. And the concept of storytelling is in our blood as African people. And so really what we saw is an opportunity to tell the story. And it's to tell ABSA stories and bring to life, I suppose, the experiences that exist within the organization. And when you look at it from a human capital sort of benefit, it's about, I'm sitting, halfway across the world, and I may not have any knowledge or any sort of info on what does ABSA Group Limited do? So what is their offering? And just by, engaging, I suppose, when you look at the audiences that sit on LinkedIn, it's all professionals. I'm within the talent acquisition space, so I'm obviously always keen to kind of get networked and chatting to individuals on the platform and positioning, of course, the ABSA Group Limited brand. But at the same time, I think that the essence of it is engagement, and it's engaging people, whether they're sitting halfway across the world, whether they're sitting in their homes. And, with the pandemic and what COVID did to us is, we're all sitting virtually, we're all working remotely. We've got new joiners and newcomers coming into the organization, and they don't get to see the wonderful world that is ABSA. They don't get to walk through the office passageways anymore, and they don't have the opportunity to engage people over coffee or whatever the case may be is. And so we looked at the LinkedIn Live platform as an opportunity to kind of bring them into the world of ABSA, along with, of course, the external sort of marketplace. And I think at the end of the day, what it's done for us is we've been able to position, a window into the culture that is ABSA, the people that is ABSA, and we've done that through storytelling. And so a lot of the content that we feature is about rich stories that happen within ABSA, about our people. It's about the actual organization itself, our leadership philosophy, our learning philosophy. So we've really used that to talk to the essence of what it is that you could experience coming to ABSA Group Limited. And we've had a wonderful time doing it. The engagement has been fantastic. Talking to Morris's point as well as Laura as well, the fact that it sits on your page and people can engage with that content after. The amount of, I suppose, queries that have come through around how do they join ABSA, tell us more about, the leadership philosophy, for example, our culture. I think it really creates a different spin on, the world of work that is ABSA and how we are operating at the moment. So it's presented a really great opportunity, and I've been super excited that we've been involved from the get-go. Thanks, Nelly.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Before I continue, I'd like to ask Ayanda, do we have some questions from our audience? Maybe we could address one or two of them.
Yes, we do, Nelly. We've actually got quite a few, and I'm happy for you to tackle any of these, or maybe even invite Marius back in. But the first one is actually from Sonia Engelbrecht, and she's asking, is there a way to make the recording of the event gated for those who were not watching LinkedIn Live?
So I'm going to
Right.
quickly jump back in for the technical answer. So LinkedIn's actually doing away with private events or gated events. And also what you'll have is you'll either be able to stream from the page or you'll be able to stream from an event, but you can obviously gate the event by adding in a registration form to capture people's details.
Awesome. Thanks, Morris. And then just another one quickly before I hand over back to you, Nelly. It says, can you invite people to the event even if they are not active on LinkedIn? I think we all know the answer to that one.
So unfortunately not. What you can, however, do is, especially if you're using a third-party production house, like our amazing corporates on the panel, then you can get an additional stream and push that stream onto your website into a separate page, or you can push it onto any one of your other social channels like YouTube or Facebook, wherever you have live streaming opportunities.
Okay. Sorry, Nelly, I'm just going to squeeze one more in. I think this is a really good one that we get asked a lot. And it's asking, can signups or registrations be integrated with Eloqua or Salesforce or attendance of the live event? Can the details of those who sign up integrate with Eloqua?
It looks like it's all technical questions. So
Very
we're going to get back to the panel conversation now. But yes, so it's a recent update. You can now integrate your LinkedIn registrations into your CRM system like Eloqua or Salesforce or any of the other ones, or you can use a third-party platform like Zapier if you don't have the bigger, more well-known CRM systems. And even if you don't have a registration form, let's say you just invite people to attend, you can through LinkedIn then remarket or retarget everybody who's RSVP'd or registered for your events. You can still speak to them again on the platform.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marius. Nelly, that's all I have for now. If there is anything else later on, and if we still do have the time, I'll definitely pose those questions to the team. Thank you. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ayanda. Thank you, Marius. All right. Sam, universities around the world have taken note of the success of the Lead Up brand. How do you prepare your content, themes, and speakers for these events? And how critical have the VC leadership been in driving this? And I think for this question, I would like the full panel to respond to it, but let's start with Sam.
Well, thanks so much for that question. I think that's a very good question. So part of our preparation is that, well, let me start by saying that I'm really fortunate to work for an institution which is probably one of the top 5 institutions in this country. And part of that means that we are fortunate to have a wealth of knowledge in terms of academia, but also in terms of alumni that's based and leaders in industry. So we have the ability to come up with topics and themes that's very topical and relevant to society. And it's the ability to draw on those themes and those individuals to bring them into this conversation that made our Lead UP brand so popular. And for example, just the thing around when the pandemic kicked off, everybody was wondering what's going to be the impact on the economy, what's going to be the impact on health, on food security. What is academics saying about research? Is research being done fast enough to mitigate some of these issues? What are the industry leaders saying about how the world of work is going to be changing? And so with our Lead UP thought leadership conversations, which was branded in that kind of way, we literally had the opportunity to bring all of these industry leaders into the fold as alumni of the university, but also our academics, and put them on a panel together to debate these issues. And this, of course, was the value that was offered to alumni that they didn't get anywhere else other than our institution, especially in the beginning when we all started this. In terms of leadership and the important role thereof and the role of our Vice Chancellor, for us, we found that the leadership role that our Vice Chancellor played was absolutely critical in the success of these events. If you have a leader that champions what you do on a very public platform, it gives the event the gravitas that is required to become and reach the people that you are, an audience you are trying to reach. So another example is that our Vice Chancellor would be present at every thought leadership virtual event that we would host. And when I say present, I mean he literally comes in and do the welcome and opening. Even though we'll have a moderator, even though I'll open with a few words as the alumni manager, the Vice Chancellor does the official opening, providing alumni and the audience with updated stats and latest achievements of the university. And then also him as a social media ambassador for the institution would reshare all of this content on his platforms where he has a large following. So I would encourage any institution or business or organization to make sure that they have the buy-in from right at the top, from your CEO, from your chief, that drives the success of these kinds of events. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sam. Zubeda, maybe you can speak on behalf of Standard Bank. How do you prepare your content and themes and speakers, and how has your leadership played a part in your events?
Thanks, Nelly and Samantha. And you've actually really hit the nail on the head. And I also want to reference what I had said previously. And I'll talk about a recent event that we hosted. Unfortunately, as much as you can tell business you need lead time, they don't really want to hear that. And they want it to be turned out, and they want it to be the success as if you've had a year. And we've recently had an event like that. And the critical success factor of that event was the availability of a virtual event, the possibility of these platforms. And as Marius referenced, we actually did stream it through LinkedIn Live and our own platform, and we had phenomenal success. What Samantha referenced is key. You have to have the buy-in of your leaders. We look at our business as our client as much as we look at our external corporates as our clients as well. So we need to ensure that we're aligned with them in terms of their needs and how does an event meet that. So it's not pretty for pretty's sake. I always say to my team, it's aesthetic with function. So we can provide that kind of guardrails, but the meat inside of it is what our business teams really bring in. So in this last event, what happened was we worked exceptionally close with our teams to bring in the insights of who are the speakers that should be on this platform, and then leverage those relationships. So we as the marketing events team kind of piggyback off that. And then working with our CE's office for our wholesale clients, international team, to say, well, here's the agenda and how we want to craft it. And then our participation was, here's the platform and how we can deliver that. Does that meet the need? How do we make sure we have Q&A so we have the interaction and provide that two-way conversation with our clients that are joining and watching? And having that kind of momentum, that kind of, that little hand on your back leading you in the right direction from our leadership team was the confidence that we then had to say, yes, we're on the right track, we're meeting the scope of this project, and we're ticking the box in terms, again, our client insights and what they need. So, and that works in terms of the meat of what we want to give to our clients, but also who do we bring on board? Again, I reference, and it's such a key point for me, you can invite 1 million people. Is it relevant for 1 million people? Really honing in and saying, does the content of this event meet the insight, the need, the obstacle, the challenge, the information required by our client? So that when they get it, they are going to be receiving ABSA, Nedbank, FNB, RMB. We need to also be very smart to say we don't want to inundate you, but we really think it's critical that you listen to this. It's not just a punting of our brand. We want to be key in our ability to give insight.
All right. Thank you very much, Zubeda. Unfortunately, we will not be able to go through the rest of the panel, but I do want to ask one last question just in our last minutes. If you could all give us one secret sauce, one super, super duper success tip for making your events and virtual events shine, what would that be? We can start off with Laura.
Sure. I actually think I would pick up on the point that Zubeda just made. I think you really have to think, how is what I'm sharing relevant? So it's not about us, it's about who we are delivering this to. How do you make sure that you are sharing something that's really going to add value to the listeners' experience?
All right, thank you, Laura. Joe, what's your secret sauce?
Yeah, Nelly, preparation is key, man. I think, and it leads to what Laura just said as well. Knowing your audience, understanding exactly what it is that you're wanting to craft for them. But I think preparation is key in that you've checked out, you've ticked your boxes in terms of what it is you're putting out there, and you know who you're talking to at the end of the day. And a feedback loop back to you after is really key as well, to ensure that you are staying on the right track and that you remain relevant. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Samantha?
Yeah, I think I want to echo what the rest of the panelists have said. Everything around preparation, that's key, content that's relevant. But I think for me, most importantly, and just because of experience, and we've had many bumps and learnings during this time too, is scenario planning and backup plans. Because there's always something that potentially could go wrong when you're doing a live event. And doing a live event is not just an event. It's my saying, usually it's you literally producing a TV show. So in the production of a TV show, what are your backup plans when the internet goes, when your moderator bums out? So make sure you have all the relevant scenario planning before we go live.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Zubeda? Last but not least.
Babysitter, as you can see, make sure you have that. I think transparency is key, and having that relationship internally so that you are speaking a golden thread message. It's not just a segment within Standard Bank of corporate banking. I speak on behalf of the whole brand, whether they're involved or not. So it's very key that communication in your internal organization happens so that when it lands to the client, they are seeing Standard Bank Group, not wholesale clients, not personal banking, or whatever the case may be. So really transparent communication is so key internally for the success externally.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies. Looks like we're out of time. I will hand over back to Ayanda to close for us.
Oh, thank you so much, Nelly, and to all of the panelists. What great nuggets of learnings from everyone. I really wish we had more time to delve further, but folks, I hope that all of your questions were answered and that today was yet again another insightful session for you all. Thank you for lending us your time today. And from me, Ayanda, our panelists, and my team at Turn Left Media, it's goodbye for now and until next time again. Thanks, guys.